and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this very short, quick update with me here in the beautiful Alps in Slovenia. So I want to say that if you've been following this thread of my recent video updates, they've all been speaking about the soul embodiment, so the integration work that takes place with our bodies. So the more soul integrated we are, the more we understand not just ourselves as energy beings, but also how this energy affects our bodies, how we translate energy, how we're mastering energy, all of those things that I've talked about in my previous video about energy mastery, longevity, and soul integration, of course, through life force cultivation. So as you know, when we start to be more translucent channel for the light, we're gonna almost like receive more of the light. It will be offered to us by the divine. It will be offered to us of divine service. So for us to learn to receive more of that light, sometimes it's easy, right? We're clearing ourselves, we're doing the channeling work to receive, but the hardest aspect, because we're still in human physical bodies, and especially for those of you who are more new souls to this earth game and earth routine and earthly embodiments, you will see that it's more challenging, you know, to work with the aspect of soul embodiment. So what does this mean? Through soul embodiment, you will start to see that the energy, as it travels, it will need a proper vessel for the light to be held, so we can actually channel it forth. And if you follow my Instagram profile, there's such a little thing called Instagram stories, where I share tiny little updates for everyone. These are kind of like Instagram stories that are short, few second videos. I give some tips, some sharing, some goofy, playful humor as well. But the thing is that with these videos, I want to actually give out a message of how to actually do the work, because I've talked about this topic so devotedly for quite a while now, and talking about life force since this year began. But in this previous video, I couldn't put everything out. So in this short update, I want to give you some of the energetic tuning into, so you can more easily understand how you will recognize this as it's happening within you. So recently, I've had this all my life, right? As a creation pillar, I can channel massive amounts of light, of energy, because they go through my vortex point, they go through the crystals that I work with here. As I often mention, in the crystal cave in the Alps, I feel like a guardian of this cave. It's very sacred to me. And as my energy flows through me and goes through, and it's being offered as a service, I have to find a way to develop the proper body strength, physical strength, and understanding of how physicality works, because the part of us that's just energetic, sometimes we call also parts of us that are the highest aspects of us, we call it higher self. These parts can be not knowing of how it is to have a physical human experience. So with the human experience, it's different, right? And we have to learn as we go along the way. And I had to learn throughout my entire life, when this strong, massive amount of light comes, which has been happening now, especially during the eclipse. And between the eclipses, it's very strong because it's very potent. Massive amount of light comes through. And if you in any way are finding yourself in resonance with this, working with energy of the massive portal of light, then you will understand how I'm going to talk about these symptoms, how you resonate with this, because it's happening in your body as well. So there is such a thing that we call a physical burnout. You know, sometimes we're too physical, we're too active, and I know these things, right? I can get too hyper and active myself. But there's also such a thing that I call the hyperactivity overload that is energetic. So it's an energetic overburn, overload. When this happens, is because there's such a massive amount of light that's coming through you. We have to develop the proper technique, the way that we know how to be stabilized, because we sometimes think that, okay, so much energy comes and energy is infinite, it's endless, right? Yes, it is, but our bodies are not always like that. So when we find ourselves having any kind of symptoms, and when I am too overly stimulated, I get this sometimes a muscle spasm that contract here in my muscles. They cause the nerves to be a little pinched together, so they kind of feel painful. So the spine nerves are kind of giving me a little bit of pain when this happens, and it also can be a byproduct of when I'm too hyperactive, when I'm engaging too much and want to do everything at once. This happens out of the contraction. But one thing is when these things are happening energetically, because we're still learning to properly be the pure vessel for that energy. So a lot of that energy is not meant to be contained in our bodies. We need to learn how to put it through our bodies. So if you find yourself having an energetic overload, a burnout, and this happened to me recently because I worked with the crystals from the Crystal Cave, which are really intense, and I worked 3 to 4 days with the art, and I've been non-stop in tingling mode. And then I had a crystal bath. I have now, as I've shared with you, crystalline alpine baths that are working to integrate our light body with our physical body. And I had almost like this energetic overstimulation. I was tingly for days, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, it's too much. And when this piles up to the degree that you can no longer translate, usually the symptoms are you get feverish. I call it being feverish. I sometimes had this when I was activating a lot of the energy here in the Alps and the mountain portals and these sacred power points. It just happened. It's not like I was thinking about it, I'm doing it just automatically because of my purpose, because I'm a creation pillar, it unfolds through my body. And usually when I was learning more about myself, the understanding of the self, I was getting the knowledge and the confirmation why it is like that and why the symptoms and what my body's trying to tell me through them. So it's a learning curve, right? For me it was, most definitely. And when I share this with you, I'm sure that the younger generation is already more balanced in this. They already have more awareness how to deal with that. But I still feel that it's important to talk about, because the more you open up, the more you're going to receive, and the more you're going to have to know how to translate it through you in a manner that it doesn't overly stimulate you, because too much energy can also be at our detriment, because our body needs to have an optimum balance of how much we receive, how much we further out that energy. So these symptoms can be when you get feverish, because have troubles breathing. I kind of start shaking internally. It's not an outside shaking, although it can translate into that, but it's kind of like you're inwardly shaking, you're having difficulty breathing, and it feels like literally like you're electrified in a way. So the perfect way that works for me to do that is, a lot of people say take baths, yeah, but baths can also be activating. They can also have the kind of eons that kind of activate us even more, especially with my alpine baths, because they're seriously intense, right? I had a huge detox the next day when I used them. But the thing is that for me, what I've learned is my guidance just said, go to the forest. I'm more of a mountain gorge kind of person. I had high mountain peaks, river streams, all that. I don't go to the forest that often, but I just knew the calling, because the forest has the kind of natural environment. It's how it's created. It literally de-electrifies us. So I've shared this in my Instagram stories shortly. The exercises we can do, it's very simple. I just knew I had to go out, and the moment I was out, it was already stabilized and stabilizing. And when I was in the forest, I could literally feel how it's like you're being pulled in both directions. The energy is almost like you have a rubber band and it's being stretched in an equal manner. So you're not just being pulled up or just down, you're kind of like being evened out in a way. That's how it feels. So after that, you feel like, ooh, it's this ease coming through, right? Because the forest has the kind of organic environment, and with its right proportion, with the trees and everything in the earth, it's so stabilizing that's what it does for us just by walking there. But what's even more powerful is that when you're walking or when you're standing on earth, think about you breathing in the excess of energy, the maximum optimum energy potential for you. Just breathe it out, and it's the most intense in-breath you can have. Just gather it all out, and then feel like what you're meant to keep within you, because the life force cannot be captured, right? You cannot capture spirit. You just are a translator for it. You're an expression of it. So the rest of it, just imagine what you don't need goes out through your feet, goes out through your hands, through everywhere. But most importantly, goes into the earth. So by this way, you're actually helping the earth get its energy through you as well. Well, everything is connected. You are the channel for that energy, and you get what you need, but you're not having that as an overburning force to kind of make you feel having those symptoms and reactions that are not good for you. You have to feel at ease. So the energy overstimulation, energetic burnout can be easily felt. It's different than physical burnout, because for me, it still feels like I can keep on going and going and just do more and do more. But I start getting that, know, that internal rush, and it feels like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I'm gonna explode. It's like too much creativity, too much everything, and I live with that my whole life. I live with that. So today, after years, because ever since we moved here I didn't have a proper massage therapist, I've been getting these signs and signals to kind of go to have a massage. Body work is very important, it really is. And after those years and years after we moved here, I didn't have anyone, and you know, I don't go to these you know, big salons or, you know, hotels, spas, whatever, because it's all just like, you know, like a factory. You want to have an intuitive specialist who will work with your energy field, because they know how they've been taught, they're intuitive, they know how to work with that. And I've realized, I just found out that my neighbor has her own salon in the town, an old town. I'm like, oh my god, I have to go. I was kind of like really guided, and I had an appointment, and she kind of helped me with my weak spots and what to notice, and these things I already knew. And a lot of the energy that are my weaker spots in my body is because I had to develop so much strength, so much stamina to even, she even said it, she said that you could even survive in this world with your energy, so you had to kind of build it up, this block. Now when I've set up my power internally, that I knew I'm in my mastery, I can start letting that go, so I'm easing into that. So a lot of these pressures are easing off, and I have to learn also to embrace the more passive energy, even more yin energy. So when I do yoga, I love yin yoga. So yin yoga is about holding a certain posture for a longer duration of time, and it's focused, as I've shared in my beloved yoga video. It's more about the section that deals with your what's it called now, the womb area. Duh. So anyway, when you start to realize what's happening in your body, what is it? Is the nature of what you're going through physical? Is it energetic? What is it? Just learning to observe our bodies and instantly following up the guidance we're receiving. Whenever I receive something, I know it's true, but I'm not always acknowledging it. So I'm learning to always acknowledge it, to always follow that guidance. And it's becoming more important, because a part of our physical ascension are these changes. So when you're opening up more, you're going to have to adapt to receiving bigger amounts of energy. What do you do? Well, you can't just be spiritual up there. You have to learn to reciprocate, to balance out, to even that out, and to become a physical vessel that is strong. You don't want to have these weak points, and when you do have them, trust that your body is naturally easing into a new, more embodied state, more embodied version. So the more simple techniques that I showed you is just putting all that excess and energy that's not meant to stay with you. It's like overstimulating, just let it pour through. The body needs to be grounded in, you know, it's almost like when you go to a store, you buy what you need. You don't grab the whole store. It'd be too much. Sometimes I feel, because we live in the mountains and we sometimes have to buy a little more in advance for further advance. And when my fridge is too full, I feel that. I'm like, it's too much. I don't know what to eat. It's too much. Things will get spoiled. It's too much. So as new humans, we have to learn to live that balanced way. So that balance is naturally happening the moment you acknowledge this. Wow, you know, when you understand the lack of balance, it's already a pathway to a greater balance, because you have an understanding of what it means to be imbalanced. And then you will have a greater understanding of what pathways are required for you to create more balance. So I think a lot of the people are having things and they're calling them ascension symptoms or whatever, but they're not doing anything about it because they're lacking this integrated knowledge, which is, oh, this is happening, I need to do this. What you instantly know, the body shows you what you need, and that's what I call soul embodiment, because the body is your main guide. It's just easy, it's natural. Like, I knew I had to go get a massage. And the funny thing is, I have to tell you this funny synchronicity. I once went to climb my mountain gorge, right? And I was just returning through those wires, and I was climbing it. And there's this family approaching me, a father and two kids, and this girl, right? She's a young girl. She approaches me. She says, "Oh, Mrs. What's your name?" Right? I'm like, "What do you want to know my name?" She's like, "Oh, do I know you?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I say my name and give her my hand, and she's like, "Oh, you're from the studio called this and that." I'm like, "What? No, that's not me." I was such a pioneer, though. It got me confused with someone. And then just before making my appointment for the massage, I look at the leaf of paper for the advertisement for it. That's what the name of the studio that the girl was saying that she knows me from. I'm like, what? Is there a girl of my namesake working there? And I asked my neighbor. She's like, yeah, she used to work here. I'm like, what? It obviously was a sign for me to go there. So these kind of things are messages, and I always tell you, kind of observe those messages, trust the guidance, because I'm very picky with these things. I don't just allow anyone to touch my body, because sometimes if people are not knowing and they've not specialized the right way, that might cause even more damage, and we don't want that. So if you are working towards that, I even read it in Soul Integration book that body work is also an important part of our ascension. It's not meant to be our ultimate. You know, people sometimes overdo it, and every time something feels a little lacking in their body, oh, I have to go get a massage. Or it's not meant to be used that way. It's meant to be used as when we're transitioning. Everything is meant to be used as a helping tool when we're transitioning. If we become dependent on any kind of source or any kind of feel-good thing, or even if it's a therapy that, you know, then you know it's not really, you know, what's making you healthy from within. So health, well-being, physical integration, soul embodiment, so much to talk about here. And as I said, I really wish to record a whole course on that with more exercises, more knowledge shared, because these are just bits and pieces that I can share in these tiny videos. I'm kind of getting chilly here now, so it's time for me to go. But I really wanted to share this quickie because in the longer video I recorded in this topic, it was more, you know, when you put a little bit of theory out. So there was like an hour and a half of theory. Now I really wanted to share like this quick update that the planet will continue to move with these energies, and if you're not going to learn to work with that, because you will be receiving more, you have to learn to balance that out. You have to learn to keep your container steady, to keep it firm, healthy. It's not just about the food, although food is so important, like food, right? But it's so much about how much of that balance you have, of the yin and yang forces running through your body, the proper way of the Tao. So when you know that this is so, certain things maybe, because I've shared with you, I've tired my body. I've literally made it so tired. I've exhausted it, I wanted to say. And when I've realized that I knew certain things I could no longer do, but not forever, just for this time of being. And when you trust that guidance, you kind of don't force your body into anything. A lot of people are pushing their bodies. A lot of sports athletes, people like that, they're really, because they have a goal, they have a fixed goal, and they're pushing their bodies, and it's causing, again, aging. It's like it doesn't have really a good effect on us, truly. So really keep your body healthy and keep it to your heart. That is so important for your physical well-being and ascension. In the long run, that's what we're aiming for. That is why you're here watching Ascension Pioneers. Why you're here. That's what it's called. It's dedicated to physical ascension. So thank you guys for watching, for sharing, for subscribing, and sharing your feedback with me, or donating. Donations are available. They're on my page, and they're shared on my YouTube channel if you feel called, whatever. So thank you. I love you all so very much. Inspired by the great divine, and of course our physical well-being is the ultimate. It is so important. That's why we're here, to master the physical human experience and how we ascend through it. So thank you, and I'll see you soon.